Okay, hi guys. I haven't done a video in a while, but I had a lot of people ask me how I did this chunky glitter ombre. Um, and I'll be honest, my short answer is luck. I had this color combination in mind for a year at least, but I didn't think it would work since they're two chunky glitters, and I didn't think I'd be able to ombre two chunky glitters, but it did work and it's beautiful. So I figured I would show a video on how exactly I did it. Now I will say there are a few reasons why I think it worked. The first is you can see in Creme Brulee, which is from Soleil, it's not a clear base and it's a pretty good mix of chunky and fine glitters. But I think the biggest thing is that it's a pigmented base. It has a nude base. This one, High Tide, is a clear base, but it too has a really good mix of those super fine glitters. I think you can kind of see that maybe if this camera can focus. Let's see, is it going to focus? You can do it. It's not going to focus. Come on. Ish. There it is. So you can see there's a lot of really fine glitter in there as well. So that kind of helps give it the ability to ombre and not just be a bunch of chunky glitter there. Easy peasy. The second thing, obviously, I use a spoon instead of a brush, and scrub ombres out for that because the scrub method is out for that because you can't scrub glitter in. But I do tap on, and instead of using a brush like I would with a normal dip powder, I use a spoon. And then the last thing is whichever glitter you're using that has a pigmented base, make sure that it is the first glitter you use on your final dip. So if you do 2 dips for your ombre, the first color you use on the second, which is your final dip of the ombre, needs to be the one with the pigmented base. That way you get that ombre effect and not just clashing of 2 glitters. Anyway, I need to put this down and use my swatch stick and not put base on my spoon. Anyway, so I'm going to shake my glitters up so that the chunky pieces are kind of at the top. Make sure they're nice and mixed. And I'm going to start with applying a really heavy, I hope this bottle's got enough in it to do this, a really heavy coat of liquid. Sorry, I just got done running, so I'm going to be hacking and coughing because the cottonwoods are not in bloom, but letting out their, anyway, allergies. Okay, so I have a pretty thick coat of liquid. Whenever I do chunky glitters, I like to do a really thick coat of liquid so that the chunky glitters can kind of smush down in there. That's the official term. Anyway, so first dip, I'm going to start with my, if both of yours are pigmented, that's fine, but this one is not pigmented base, so I'm going to start with that. And I hold the spoon the same place I would hold it if I were using a brush, and I just tap. And you can see that the glitters fall really nicely in that ombre kind of gradual pattern. And I'm going to tap off the excess and come over here and do the same thing on this side. And you'll notice I kind of tapped off to the side when doing that second because I don't want to get blue glitters in my creme brulee. I did a little bit when I was showing you the super fine glitters, but it's fine. Most of my dips get contaminated when I use them because I'm messy. So I'm going to brush off my excess, kind of push down any that are sticking up. But I don't know if you can really see, it's actually pretty flat, and partly because I did that really thick coat of liquid so that it smushes down in there and you don't have them just sitting on the top. I use real official scientific language when I speak, as you can tell. Smush them in there. Okay, so second, and this will be my final. I usually only do 2 coats, and trying to use up the last of this bottle. And if I weren't using chunky glitters and I weren't doing a design, I would be fine with just a little bit of liquid. In fact, that's better if you're using solids, solid dip powders, that you get a smoother if you get really thin coats. But chunky glitters are a thing of their own, and that is not the case for them. So I like it really nice and thick. I like them thick. I like them chunky. So opaque base, pigmented base, whatever you want to say, is my first coat of the second final. So what I'm doing here is trying to get those chunky or glitters there. Okay. And I'm just going to take them and tap them on. And you can tell, like, I focus really at the bottom or the top, this end of the swatch or your nail. And then I'm also trying to make sure that I get that fall kind of going over the blue. And if I need to, I can come back in and hand place some of the chunkier glitters because it didn't want to stick that well. Anyway, then I come back with my blue, smush them in. And I will have to come in and hand place some of those chunkies because since I'm videoing, they didn't want to stick in there like they did on my nails or on the test swatch. This was the swatch that I, when I was trying to decide if this would work, I mean, and it was perfect. And obviously my nails, but whatever. So there you have that, nicely ombre'd. And then what am I looking for? I'm gonna actually grab out some of these little chunky glitters if I can. I need one of these. This is an orange stick. Okay, so now that I have kind of that base, now I will reiterate, I didn't actually have to do this when I did my nails or when I did the test swatch. So I don't know why they didn't want to stick for this video, but to get those chunky glitters in, what I did is just dabbed some of the glue down, or the dip liquids down on the swatch in just random places, and then I'm going to come in and I dip it in the wet glue and then dip it or put it in the, wow, I pick up the glitter with the wet glue that was stuck on my orange stick. I'm obviously struggling to speak here. So then you get some of the chunky ones in there too. I'm not going to go crazy because you get the point. And then I would come in and do the same thing with the blue to like pour my base out. I think this bottle's about done. I think we're done with this liquid here. All right, let's get some. I just can't get any liquid out. Things I should have checked before hitting record. It's fine. Okay. Oops. So I'll come in and just grab those. I pull them out because it's hard to chase glitters around. Actually, look, I had some right here. It's hard to chase those glitters around in the cupcake liner. So it's easier just to separate them, and then you can fine. And I'm kind of looking as I'm putting these on, I'm just looking. It's hard, sometimes you forget where you put your glob of glue. So you just look for the shiny, and that's where you stick it. All right, there we go. Easy peasy lemonade squeezy. I kind of want, see if I can't. Yeah, I might be able to. There's one on the. So you can see I've added in the chunky. Now, again, I didn't have to do that when I did my test swatch or my nails. So probably because I'm rushing, and definitely because I'm videoing. And I just stuck my finger in and took off some of those that I placed, but whatever. So I smushed those in good. If I can, I was going to show you the trick of how I encapsulate. Let me just get a different bottle. There we go. Goodness. All right, so then when I'm encapsulating, I like to come in and just do a really thick, another really thick, I do really thick coats on my liquids. It just works better. I'm gonna move that blue kind of up there. Okay, so I did a really thick coat. I'm gonna encapsulate it in clear. So I typically will just do, now unless they're like really wonky, sometimes when I do designs, they'll be kind of sticking up funny. This is not one of those times. So I can get by with just one dip of clear. So you notice I didn't wipe off. It was really thick. Actually the powder was still wet on the swatch. You know, usually when you get done dipping, it's dry, right? And you have excess powder, wipe off. This, I made sure that I did so much base that the clear was immediately absorbed. And then I went in and did another heavy coat of base. So then I'm gonna let this dry for a minute. And sometimes I'll even hold it upside down so that you kind of get that apex as it dries. And then even if it's not completely dry, I will go in and do activator on it. I'll show you that in just a sec as this goes. Now, here's my caveat on this method. You cannot do this with liquids that seize up easy. I'm using Simply Southern's liquids, and they are impossible to contaminate. Like, oof, there went the lid. We'll just set that aside. I don't wipe them off, and as you can see, I got to the bottom of that other bottle and I mistreated them just like I did in this video. This is how I use them all the time, and they didn't ever seize up. So that's my caveat, is this method will only work with liquids that are not going to contaminate super easy, even if you get powder in them. I've not tried it on the more sensitive liquids. So I can't really attest to whether or not that works, but if I were using more sensitive liquids like a Rebel or something, I would definitely wipe them on a paper towel or a lint-free something, rag, something, not a rag, what are those called? Lint-free things. Just to make sure that I get any powder off before I put it back in the bottle. But there you go. So if you're using easy liquids, this is a great method to get a really smooth and clear encapsulation. So you can see this is still super shiny. Even after it dries, it's shiny because when you add the powder, it kind of makes it matte, but this is almost straight liquids with just a little bit of powder. So anyway, I'm going to come in with my activator and just kind of dab it to harden it, and then I'll go back in and do another, I'll brush across. But I'm going to give it a sec. Anyway, this is how I encapsulate all of my glitters designs, because it gets a really smooth finish, and I find that I am not buffing off the color of my glitters quite as often or quite as much if I'm just doing like a dip of clear, the regular method. So it works well, and you can see it's already kind of hardening up. So now that it seems to be pretty solidified, I'm going to come in and brush with my activator just to finish that up. And then I would go in and finish this. I'd buff, file and buff, and finish with a top coat, and voila, easy peasy. I'll show you this one because it turned out better, but I assure you the methods are the same, and that kind of reiterates it was partially luck, although it ombrayed well. So, but you will need to use a chunky glitter that has a pigmented base, and one that has a good amount of fine glitters in there as well, and not just the really thick chunky ones for it to work well.